Vera did that for countless numbers of children. And one other one, a reader lives 1,000 lives before he dies. The man who never reads lives but one. Thank you, and I am so thrilled that you are all here. Thank you.
Okay, I'm Helen Rados, not Rados. And this year I am president of the Friends of the Library, and I want to welcome one of our great members, Sylvia Badowski. I can ask her to stand. And James Goldfarb is here, and thank you. The Friends are one of the best organizations I've ever belonged to, because when we say we're going to do something, we do it. I would encourage all of you to become a friend of the library. We're running a raffle right now, and if you are a new or renewing member, you get your name put in a hat, and you can win a beautiful gift basket of Sherlock Holmesy kind of stuff. So it's outside. The applications are outside, and we welcome your participation in the Friends. And help yourself to the refreshments, which are here because of the Friends. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, once again, just thank you to everybody that came out to celebrate Vera B. Williams' legacy in our area today. My name is Cheryl Jones. I'm the Youth Services Librarian here at Ethelbert P. Crawford Public Library. As a lot of you know, Vera B. Williams wrote over a dozen children's books. Most of them are back there on the table in the corner if anyone wants to see. Her art style is beautiful and just distinctive, and we've used it in pretty much everything, as you can see. We are doing a story walk after this concludes, after all of the speeches are done. I want to say it was 3 years ago, when the chair was first put out there and the building was first opened, our first story walk in this new building was a chair for my mother. And so story walk, if you're not sure, was invented by somebody in Vermont, and it is a way for communities to engage with distinguished literature while also getting some exercise and getting out and going around the community. So we, with the support of, I think, 16 local businesses, have Vera's Story Garden, or Vera's Chair for My Mother book back up around the community, and I will be happy to lead anybody around to the different panels so you can read the story throughout the community after this concludes. Right, thank you very much. And Mary Kate, thanks for the library director.
Hi, everybody. I'd like to recognize some dignitaries that are here today first. We have Dan Briggs, County Clerk, and our Assembly Person. Would you like to say anything, Aileen? I know you're no?
No, just, it's so wonderful to drive up Broadway. And I think this library has brought so much life to Broadway itself and to the businesses in Broadway. And you know what? I'm so proud to be, part of this community and this library. And so thank you, all of you. It means a lot to our children. And I know that I always talk about my children and their experience in the library after school. And, some of their greatest memories. And I have now 5 granddaughters, and their moms are bringing them to the library. The new one is only a month old, but I'm sure Kate will be bringing her to the library.
And here, Aileen was instrumental in helping this library with funding for over $100,000 to help us furnish the library. So you get it, we appreciate it, so thank you so much for all that.
But remember, it's always your taxpayer money that I'm fighting for to bring it back. So it's all of your money, supporting this library.
Thank you. I didn't mean to come out of her pocket or personal. That's $11. Okay, and please look at the slideshow if you haven't seen it. It's kind of hard with the lighting in here, but it shows all the work that's gone into the garden, all the people that have participated, and it's a lot of work, like establishing that circle thing and rolling it out. But it was really a labor of love for the people that participated. Everybody enjoyed it, and there was a shared goal, and so happy we're here, and I'm so happy we're here for this event today. So, so some of you have come a good distance to share in this event, recognizing the contributions of your family member, your friend, your colleague, or your neighbor. So if you're from near or far, I thank you all for coming. Vera touched many people during her life, and I feel privileged to have been one of them. I met Vera back in the early 2000s when I was working at the Public Library in Narrowsburg. And it probably comes as no surprise to anyone here that Vera didn't waste any time identifying and using her local public library. So I got to know her well. She did several programs at the library for children, as well as sharing her wisdom about writing and illustrating books for children with the youth services librarians of the Ramsbrook Catskill Library System. And that's the system we're a part of that serves all of the Orange, Rockland, and Sullivan County Public Libraries, as well as a few libraries in Ulster County. So she shared her knowledge with all those folks, so that was a great thing. She was very generous to the library community, and I think that's largely because she recognized their value and she lived hers. The chair she imagined and put to paper in a chair for my mother always captivated me. I'd hoped we could accommodate a grand chair like that for people to cozy up in and read along with their children inside the library. But since that wasn't an option, we looked where else? We looked elsewhere, which was outside. Our landscaper got creative, and with the help of Emily Jablon, she's a mosaic artist, our chair became a reality. Much thanks for help in making our chair happen goes to the Sullivan County Plans in Progress grant program. I don't see anybody from there, but they helped us fund the creation of that chair. But Jill was here, Jill Wire, who was here. Oh, she's still with them. She was here. Jill was here shortly. I think her son's had a baseball game, but she's from the Plans in Progress grant program. With those funds, we were able to create the chair, and soon thereafter, further funding was sought through Sullivan Renaissance, and the garden became a reality. Our gardens have been cared for by many friends of the garden, friends of the library, library staff, library board members, the Sullivan Renaissance Volunteer Corps,
Library director.
Sullivan Renaissance Volunteer Corps. What's that?
So the library director.
And many that just wanted to lend a hand today. Some people would be just walking by and they see us taking the mulch off the truck, and they're like, oh, I wanted to help, and they're like in their nice clothes, like digging in the mulch. People just, really have they're vested in this library, and I so appreciate it. So you'll also see the Friends of the Garden when you go outside. You'll see the Friends of the Garden just donated a little free library. So anybody that's not familiar with that, we have a little bookmark outside that explains what it is, but you can kind of just borrow a book. They're free, they're not library books, but take a book, leave a book. It's a lovely concept, and that was a very nice gift that we just got in this week as well. The beautiful sign in the garden was made by Brandy Marola, a dear, dear friend of Vera's. And Sean Harrington came out one day and did an amazing job erecting a fence in a space that no one thought it was possible. And if you look at that fence, it's quite something. The idea to establish a literary landmark was put in my head by Randall Enos, who had for many years been the youth services consultant for the Ramsbrook Catskill Library System. I'm so glad he did, and how fitting that we were able to receive this wonderful designation during the 100th anniversary of Children's Book Week. I think Vera would be happy with that. She generously painted a chair for a fundraising auction the Friends of the Library held during its 75th anniversary back in 2011. And I will now turn it over to Joanne Barish, who can tell you a little bit more about some of the other kindnesses she bestowed upon the children in this area.
I'm going to take you on a little trip with Vera. I'm a retired Monticello Central School teacher, and I often had speakers come into my classroom throughout the years. And so when Mary Page came to me and asked me if I would like to have Vera Williams come to my classroom, I jumped at the chance. Now, Vera couldn't drive, so I had to get permission from my principal to leave school and go down and pick Vera up. So when I got there, she had a little, it's house on the river, and I had to go in and help her pack her things up and get them ready to bring up to our school. And when you went in, she had all of her markers, her paints, her easels with her tablet poster, things that she could draw on in there. And you could look out the window, there was a lot of natural light, you could look out the window and you could see the Delaware River. It was just a beautiful, beautiful place for her to do her artwork. So she packed everything up, we drove back to school, and we had put a few tables out like that in the room, and she proceeded, we had 2 classes in there. I was teaching 6th grade English, and we put 2 tables out, and she set her artwork up, just like her studio in her house. She put her easel up, she took out all of her markers and her paints, and then she started to talk to the children. She didn't really want to talk to the adults in the room, she really just wanted to communicate with the students. And she began to show us, she taught us a lesson. Now, I'll tell you 2 different things she did that day. One of them I don't have a poster for, my daughter has it at her home. And it was a story, I don't remember the exact storyline, but it was about a mouse that lived in the house, and there's a slide on there that comes up periodically, I don't remember the name of it, but it's up there. And she carefully drew the whole scene of the room, and there was a little mouse hole, and there was a little mouse that had come out of the hole, and the essence of the story is that he had found a red crayon, and he pilfered that crayon, and he would come out at night, and he would do things with it. And so when she got to the end of the story, it was very quiet, and my team teacher, Jamie, had, I guess, reduced herself to a 6-year-old at that time because she yelled out, "How could he do that?" So we all started laughing, and because we realized that Vera had really made that story so real to her that Jamie believed it. So when it got quiet, Jamie goes, "I can't help it, I believe in magic." And that's what she did with that particular story. Now the second one that she did, I have a picture of it. This is totally different. It's not the same kind of detail you would expect from her, but she had a special lesson that she was going to teach that day, and it was to take a blank piece of paper and do something with it, and whatever you do with it, you can make something else out of it, okay? So what she did, she started, and she said, she took a red marker and she made a capitalized B here. And she said, now we can make something out of that. So she proceeded to do a little scribbling, I'm not sure where she started, and then she went and she would do something else, and then she'd come back and she'd do something else, and she'd do something else, and she'd go with these mittens. I think the mittens would have been an important part because she highlighted those. She put an earring on the man. She really went to town on it, just talking to the kids. And they're saying, oh yes, you can take something and you can make something else out of it. So then she wrote the name up here, Man with Shoelace. And she took the marker and she connected the shoelace down to the sneakers that she had drawn. And I have to say that Vera's borders always enchanted me. Her borders were sometimes one of the best things on the page besides the words. And in Cherries and Cherry Pits, she has that same shoelace concept. And oftentimes, you know, the border will kind of highlight what's important in the story. So she was pointing that out. Now, then Mary Page came to pick her up, and they packed up, and Mary Page nicely took her back home so that I could remain at school. After she left the room, we decided that we would write to her. So the next day, the children all wrote her letters, and we mailed them, and we didn't hear from her for a while, and I thought, well, that's the end of that. It wasn't too long, maybe 3 weeks, we got a package in the mail that size. And she had carefully placed postcards that, I guess your children would know, she had postcards that had pictures from her various books. And she had put a selection of postcards in there, and enough for everyone to have one. And so the kids took them, and I said, well, you could use them for bookmarkers. You know, I don't know if they remember or even have it, but it was such a nice day with her. And I have to say that I bought the chair at the auction. And it's in my daughter, my younger daughter is a librarian in middle school in Menacing Valley Central School, and the chair is in her library. So Vera lives on, you know, there's one side of it. Okay, that's it.
So before we go outside and actually unveil the plaque, anyone who's here that shared time with Vera or has a story they want to share about her, please, feel free to do so.
I'm just gonna say, I spent lots of time with her because she's my mother. That I think she did a fabulous job, and I can picture her sitting in that chair with a big grin, and that, an honor is a great thing, but when you're honored in a really appropriate and beautiful way, carried out nicely, it's actually special. So thank you.
To sort of pass the idea by Vera, I kind of, at that big opening of the DBA, there were like a billion, it was like sauce, like in there, and I had my little plans, and I went over and showed her, Michael, you kind of facilitated me sort of, and she was very in favor of it, so I was pleased to get her blessings on pursuing this.
Well, Vera always loved to be honored and appreciated. I know, I can say it. She enjoyed the attention. She loved the children and how honestly they related to her and she related to them. And she would be very happy with this event today and with this library and what it's become.
And I think she kind of did what was done for her. Like as a child, she had Florence Kane was an artist that kind of mentored her. And I think Vera was so moved by that experience. In her conversation with her, but it seems like she lived her values. Like that had value to her, and she went out and did it herself because she knew it would have, believed it would have meaning for children, and I clearly think it did because I'm an adult and she moved me.
She also spent much of her childhood in the library. As much as possible, she loved the library. She always talked about it wherever she was. Her mother would take her.
Yeah, and I would add, I think, she liked, you said, she liked being recognized, she liked, making the book, selling the book, but my sense was when she went to a library or a school talk with children, that was a kind of absolute highlight, so.
She was in her element, yeah. All right. Virginia, I know you're her colleague. Virginia, your Wolf is here. She nominated Vera for the, what's it called?
NSK Newstat Award, which is a body of work award. We met I had met her a few years earlier when I saw Scooter, which is the most wonderful book. And it taught me so much about storytelling, about living. I laughed, I cried, it changed my life. And it's told somewhat, now we have graphic novels, but they really all, Hemingway said we came from a raft populated by Huck Finn and Jim. Well, I think graphic novels came from Vera B. Williams. Some of the story is told in acrostics, and they have wonderful borders. It's a great story about a girl and her mother and their neighborhood. And when kids have bikes, who rides a scooter? It's just a wonderful book. And I met Vera B. Williams at Children's Literature in New England, where she gave a talk, and Scooter was featured, and we became friends. And a few years later, when I was asked to be on a jury to nominate someone for a great big award, I didn't know how to do it, so I said yes. And there were 9 nominees, each nominated by an author or a librarian, I guess, children's lit scholar. And I worked very hard on the nominating statement because, of course, I didn't know how to do it. So I read all of Vera several times and started quoting, and then we decided on the winner by voting several rounds during a conference call. And when I realized that some of the jurors were simply repeating what they had said in their nominating statement, I thought, oh yes. Because just a few days earlier, panicked that I would do the wrong thing or not do it well enough, I had re-encountered, thank God, Matisse's dance. The 5 women. And I said, you all know Matisse's dance, and this is what Vera does in her books. And somehow we won. representative book, and I chose Scooter. I could have chosen nine others. But it was, and so we went to the University of Oklahoma, and she was awarded the great big award, and we had a wonderful time. And that's, we were together in Africa too.
Oh.
And South Africa, on a children's journey, children's lit journey. And when I asked her, we worked with some women who run creches, the nursery schools in the Venda area of South Africa. And on the third day, they dressed in their marvelous, gorgeous costumes, clothing, and danced, and Vera was the only one of us who danced with them. Are you not surprised? Only one. I think I took some pictures, I don't know where they are. And during that South African trip, I said to Vera, whom I was sort of getting to know, why do I always think of you with Grace Paley? And she said, because we protested together. Yeah. The night she spent in jail. And so it was my little brain just taking this in. She was a wonderful colleague and friend, and I'm deeply indebted to her in ways that I have no language for.
Thanks to Vera's family. We have a biography on our website, ebcpl.org, if you want to read a little bit more about her. We have all her books here. Obviously, I'm a librarian, so I'm going to say, if you have a library card, check them out. If you don't, I'll take it on my card. You should read her stuff, or just spend some time here at the library reading. Okay, so Rocco, did anybody else want to say anything? Anybody else about Vera? Your time with Vera?
Yes. Thank you. Well, I am delighted to be here. I'm Rocco Stano. I wear several hats. My main hat today is as the director of the Empire State Center for the Book, which is right here. And the Center for the Book is the New York State affiliate of the Library of Congress Center for the Book. And we, one of our projects is working with United for Libraries in dedicating literary landmarks around New York State. And I should just now switch to United for Libraries, a division of the American Library Association. I happen to be a board member of that organization, and it is the division of the American Library Association that works closely with Friends of Libraries, because its former name was FLUSA, Friends of Libraries USA, and it works with board members, too, library trustees, in advocating for libraries, all types of libraries, but especially public libraries. And so they have this program of literary landmarks that they around the country. And I'm happy to say that this is the 29th literary landmark in New York State, but it is the first literary landmark in Sullivan County. And Mary Page mentioned Randy Enos coming to you, and that was after Virginia Duncan, her editor at Harper, came to me and said, wouldn't it be great to have a literary landmark for Vera? And she had a few suggestions, in New York City, and then, but speaking with Randy, I knew the connection, and we pursued that, and it's thanks to the generosity of Harper Collins that we were able to move forward with this literary landmark. And the Children's Book Council is the group that celebrates Children's Book Week, and it's the 100th anniversary of Children's Book Week, and it is terrific that we're able, as you said, to celebrate Vera during the 100th anniversary of Children's Book Week. So the Center for the Book, we do literary landmarks. We have the New York State Writers Hall of Fame, where we induct writers, both living and deceased, every year. If you're alive, they have to show up to be inducted. And this year, believe it or not, these people are showing up. James Patterson, Doris Kearns Goodwin, Jennifer Egan, and Larry Kramer are all going to be on June 4th. If you're in New York City, it's at the Princeton Club, and we'd love to have you there. So Writers Hall of Fame, Literary Landmarks, and we also coordinate the Letters About Literature project in New York State, where students write letters to authors about how their book affected them personally.
Wow.
So we'll be announcing those winners shortly. So I should also give a plug to the New York Library Association, which is the state library association which houses the Empire State Center for the book. But thank you all, and I cannot wait to